Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Elevation Association Experience Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Dan Nelson, and with me today is the man, Mr. Ryan Passey, my partner in crime. What's up, Ryan?
Not much. Excited to be here. Uh, Looks like a beautiful day today. So,
Well, I'm pretty jazzed about talking about our topic today. Give a little bit of background. We recently have had a series of things happen that have kind of led up to wanting to talk about what we're going to talk about today. And um, one of the things was that kind of struck me was we do a mastermind group for dentist advisors, and if anybody's ever interested in that, just let me know. But anyway, we were meeting. Had this outline planned for what we were going to go over in our mastermind group, and I shifted gears last second because this last Monday we actually had some visiting. We had a visiting dentist and some folks from the University of Utah Korea campus come and visit, and it was pretty eye opening for what they had to share and their rationale and the reason for the visit and some of the information they gave us. And it was really tied to community. And what I mean by community is tribe. So we call it tribe in Elevation Association. And what that is like having a community, having, a group of peers that you can rely on, someone that can understand you, those kinds of things. And someone to collaborate with. I think that's a big part of it, right, Ryan? They don't really have that. And so I kind of want to give some time to Ryan, because Ryan spent the whole day meeting with these guys. They'd actually come over, right, to learn how we were doing, how we assisted and trained other dentists and dental offices how to do a lot of stuff. But I'm going to kind of turn it over to you, Ryan, and let you talk about this a little bit and why it was so pertinent and what some of the things we gleaned from this. And so basically today we're going to talk about the importance of community. And I think that this is especially poignant for dentists because it's easy to be isolated, and it's easy to feel like you don't have community because of the nature of what dentistry is and how competitive it is. And there's some warning signs from Korea, right, Ryan? There was a lot of red flags going on over there that could easily happen over here.
well, I think it's not just easily happen over here, but I think it is happening over here. It was kind of interesting just to, again, talk with Dr. Lee and get his perception on some of the problems that they are dealing with over in Korea, and then see kind of how it's similar in a lot of ways to dentistry here in America. And so, like Dan said, we had a great visit with Dr. Lee, and his translator James came over from Korea. Dr. Lee is the newly elected president of the Korean Dental Society, so which is kind of a big deal for him in Korea, and it was kind of cool to have a chance to get to sit down with him. And as he's preparing to take his role in January of 2027, starts his term as the president of the dental society there in Korea. He's working on, ways of providing, solving problems that are happening over in Korea. And so he reached out to us as a way of getting some insight, some information on what's working well with dentists here, some things that we're implementing and business wise, and then to try to take some of that back to incorporate with the dentists that he's hoping to work with over there in the Dental Korean Society. So it was a super enlightening, such a great guy, super intelligent, very high level dentist. But his background is in, again, part of the reason he came was in business. He's like, they just don't teach business over there for private practice owners. And he's like, it's such a struggle because they do great dentistry, but they just don't have the business background. And so he came over to kind of learn ways that we're working with offices to, again, solve that same problem here in the States, that, dentists get a great education on clinical skills and stuff, but they kind of lack that business acumen. So Dr. Lee's written a book on business management in Korean for dental practices, medical practices. And so it was great to sit down with him and just talk shop and show him the things that we're working on here with our members of Elevation Association, the software we use, and he's super excited to go back and try all that stuff there. So, but it was interesting again, just the similarities between like that, for example, of like not getting the business training, but it kind of evolved into this conversation of like um, that dentists are very isolated, and so they don't communicate very well with each other. They're very guarded. Korea is such a has such a culture of competition that is an underlying issue there, and there's no real sense of community. So that was kind of this part of these threads that we're getting throughout the conversation and the day with him is just there's this struggle to share information, to be vulnerable, to be able to communicate, to support each other and help each other. Like that was one of the big takeaways was we had them come and sit through our Monday morning staff meeting here, team meeting here at Wood River Dental, and so we had our entire crew here as we went through. Just we just wanted to show them like this is how we do it here at Wood River Dental, and these are the principles and things that we teach to our Elevation Association members. And they were like shocked that he's like the team like voiced their opinions. Like he's like that doesn't happen in Korea because it's like the doctor's kind of like this authoritative figure, and whatever he say goes, and the team's not very involved in like sharing information, resolving problems. It's just like it's very much a dictatorship. He said it's like uh, you just go and whatever the doc says goes, and then amongst the docs themselves, like they won't talk with each other, or communicate, or share information. And so there's this again this environment there. He was pretty shocked, and he thought how cool it was that the staff had a voice in the meeting. And he's like, you guys touched on a lot of topics that just wouldn't come up because the opportunity to share information is just not there. So so it was super interesting, and that. So a ton of other things, like just um, the issues that are caused by being isolated was interesting to talk to him about. So
Yeah, I had a interesting so James, the translator, also works at the University of Utah and in the Seoul campus. He attended school in Utah at the main campus, University of Utah campus in Salt Lake City. Super fascinating guy to talk to. And he was like, look, we're trying to solve some huge societal problems, on the level that we can attack it. And he was really excited to be working with Dr. Lee on this. And so as we're sitting in my office and we're kind of talking over my computer, and he says, he has me look up a couple things. He said, look up the number one reason for death in Korea. I'm like, okay. Now I've lived in Japan for 3 years and I visited Korea quite often, and I really love Korean. And he said, people look at Korea and they look at it as like a benchmark country. It's like everyone wants to, be like Korea because they're such on the leading edge of, their economy is really good right now. They're on the leading edge of technology. I mean, we look at dentistry, right? Like how much of what our implant and, take guided tissue regeneration and stuff like that. They're on the cutting edge of all of that. And so he's like, yeah, we're perceived that way, but there's some underlying huge problems. And he says, so I looked up to see what the number one cause of death was. It's suicide. It's number one cause. It's greater than cancer. It's greater than heart disease. It's greater than anything else, which blew my mind. Suicide. And he said, just like what you were just talking about, Ryan, is that there's such I guess a society of competition there And I think that we can relate to that here in the US, where we're pretty competitive and we're taught to be competitive from the minute we hit, even in high school, but definitely in college, where we know we're gunning for that spot, and it's getting even worse. That spot in dental school, it's getting worse. I spoke with Dean Call, with Dean Steve Call. He's one of the deans over at Midwestern University. He said that they shattered the record for applicants this last cycle. It was over 5,000 applicants to Midwestern University College of Dental Medicine Glendale campus. And that was significantly higher than anything they'd ever seen before. So that level of competition is massive. So we have it in undergrad. We certainly have it in dental school. We create, like, I don't know how it was for anybody else at dental school. We actually looked at each other's work and were expected to do peer review and peer, grading, for multiple reasons. And I think it's necessary, but it's something that starts to get ingrained in us to the point now where we become very secluded with our insecurities, with our fears, with our challenges, and we no longer have a safe environment to share those things. Well, in Korea, it's just ranked up even more, it's jacked up even more. Not only has it caused a massive mental health problem there, but there's a real fiscal issue as well that they're seeing in dentistry there. And one of the things that they're doing is they're racing to the bottom. That was kind of an interesting thing, right? Correct me if I'm wrong on these numbers, Ryan, but I believe that he said, 10 years ago, the price for an implant was about $1,500 for an implant,
Yeah.
which is still pretty inexpensive there. And they've gone all the way down to $300 now for an implant.
$300. Yeah.
Yeah. So not for an implant body, not the purchase, but to actually, like, that's what the patient pays to get an implant.
Yeah.
So pretty scary race to the bottom because there's no collaboration going on between the dentists there. There's just competition only, and their best way to attack and depending on your market, you probably can relate to this really well, is just to race to the bottom. You just do a price war, which of course every doc's going to lose in that situation. So price wars are a horrible way to be competitive. So not only are they feeling isolated, they're frustrated with diminishing returns. So they're in dentistry's, they're really struggling there. Even though the quality of work and a lot of, like I said, a lot of the cool stuff that we see and enjoy here is coming from there, they're not getting that side of it because they've just completely created an environment of isolated competition. And I could easily see us, like you said, Ryan, that we with the offices that we see it happening now, and definitely now more with private practices trying to keep up with the corporate offices, with the DSOs. It's changed the landscape. So, I mean, this is kind of some frightening stuff that I think we need to be aware of.
Yeah, for sure. And it was just, again, interesting to listen to them talk about the cultural, like problems. Cause again, the suicide thing, that shocked me that there was rated so high on suicide. And again, it comes from this, isolation, competition, not having sounding boards, being able to talk to other dentists or practitioners and make good decisions and work together to better the profession and better, it's like you said, it was just a race to the bottom. It's like, how can I compete? And he's like, the only lever everyone's pulling price, like, lower my price, lower my price, lower my price. And so, you could definitely tell he was frustrated with just, the lack of, dentists being able to talk with each other and communicate. And that was what he's like taken back, was a hope of, like, trying to foster more community, more collaboration, more working together to solve issues as private practice owners. How can we collaborate more to, better the profession, benefit everybody, again, provide the care and services that the patients need and deserve, but like not a race to the bottom on, and then making life harder and more competitive, and again, for everybody as well, in the context of all that, right?
Yeah, and there's real world impact of all this. So I got curious after talking with Dr. Lee and James, and so I went and pulled some statistics, and These are kind of shocking. So, there was a landmark meta-analysis, and what they found was that adequate social relationships had so people with adequate social relationships had a 50% greater likelihood of survival than those with poor, insufficient relationships. So, in other words, like overall health, how much longer are you going to live? What does that look like? So, and I know you talk a lot about that when we talk about tribe, Ryan, when you do your presentation on, the blue zones. That was one of the big things, right? The Okinawans that have their friends, um, and so this was an interesting thing, but that effect is actually it's comparable to like quitting smoking, and it's actually a larger effect than obesity or physical inactivity have. So if
Yeah.
you're isolated, like it's it's about the same as if you picked up smoking or if that you had an obesity issue or that you just never you were sedentary. So there was some other interesting data points here. The 2023 U.S. Surgeon General's advisory, they noted that poor connection carries a 29% increased risk of heart disease, 32% increased risk of stroke, and 50% increased risk of dementia, which is bonkers. Yeah, that's crazy. If as it pertains to like actual like dentistry, there was some pretty shocking things that came out. This one's not shocking at all. The ADA Council in 2024, they found that 82% of dentists reported feeling major stress and career burnout. I want to know who the 18% is that's like, no, I'm
No,
good.
yeah.
Like,
Who's not feeling it, right?
who are those people? Like, I'm like, wait, what? There's 18%. Shouldn't that number be 100%? Like, how is this 82%? So that, anyway, I thought that was interesting. And also kind of like, well, duh. But in the 2023 trend report found that 40% of dentists felt defeated, wanted to quit dentistry, or did not want to go to work at least monthly in the 6 months before the survey. That sucks.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks. Like that's brutal. Like, and we know it. Like we meet with them all the time where they feel defeated, they're run down, like they're frustrated. They're like, what? To hate your career though, that's brutal, right? Especially one that's taken so long to get here and taken so much sacrifice, so much energy, so much effort, and then to find that you don't enjoy it. And that's something that we address a lot with EA is finding joy in your career again, and finding things that make you happy. But it's a bummer that we have to address it as much as we do, right? Just that man, I don't really like my career. That's rough with it to be so much in physical, mental, and financial debt just to find out that I don't really like this.
I really like it. And I have to spend every day doing it, and there's no escape for me. I got all this debt, all this, yeah. It's, and that's part of the reason that we focus on not just the practice, but we try to focus on life and leadership and legacy, right? Because it's all matters. It's all relevant, like you say, we just, when we were up in Alaska this past week, we talked, we did a lot of stuff based on life design, life happiness. We talked about the blue zones. And again, it was interesting on the tribes, right? Where you're talking about like, the blue zones was the study of these places where people live, over the age of 100. And there was 9 common denominators in each of those blue zones. And 5 of the 9 were about tribe, about community, family, people, not being isolated, right? That allowed people to live into their hundreds. It was more about community and tribe than it was necessarily the foods or the other things, right? The big lever was having people, family, faith, those things, purpose that your family gives you, those things that drive you forward is the need for connection, the need for a happy life, right? And not just work and so that's, one of the reasons we focus so much on that is we realize like, you can help someone with their practice to a certain extent, but that may not change the happiness levers in their life, right? Business is running better. Maybe it reduces a little bit of stress, puts more money in the bank. But what about the rest of my life, right? Like, and how many billionaires are happy, or how many and billionaires have all the money in the world, but they're not happy, right? That's
Hmm.
something you hear about all the time, right? It doesn't bring happiness. And so there's definitely other components to having a successful life and enjoying what you do, right? So
Yeah, and I think we should probably clarify too this idea of isolation. We talk about isolation, and you're like, well, how am I isolated when I'm surrounded by a team of assistants, hygienists, all that stuff? And so isolation is not solitude, right? It's not solidarity. So what we're talking about is unpure proximity, right? So so you're isolated in the sense of like, who do you have that can relate to what you're going through? And one of the things that shocked me, I learned about this not long after I got out of the Air Force, ironically. And what it was that they were having an issue with drone pilots back in about 2010, 2013, I think is when I heard about when was the time frame that I learned about it. But what was happening was traditionally pilots, ever since World War One, pilots, they started to do they would have an officers club, and they would have um a place for squadrons to go. In addition to the officers club, they would have usually a squadron room. And what they would do after a sortie or a mission is that they would go and have this this hot wash. We still use that term. I brought that from the Air Force, and we use that term in our own meetings. But anytime we have a big event or something like that, we have a hot wash. So anyway, they would go and fly these missions. They come back and they would have a hot wash. And one of the things they would do is they would strip rank, right? So they would go in and everybody had to say, you could say whatever you wanted to say. It didn't matter if the squadron commander was there. He came in without rank. And I mean, I get it. Like the concept is good, but it actually worked in practice as well. And they would then go through the things that went well, the things that didn't go well, the frustrations they had. They would mourn if they lost somebody. It was a chance to let that emotion out with people that understood what they were going through. And that's a key, is that the pilots had these peers that could relate to one another. And rank didn't become an issue. That rank didn't matter. It was the experience and that shared experience. So when the drone program came around, these guys are, it's what's called deployed in station. And so maybe they were stationed in Vegas, or maybe they're stationed at another base that's stateside. And these drone pilots don't physically have to deploy forward. So they would stay at their wherever they were stationed, and then they would leave home, drive to work, fly a mission, put warheads on foreheads, watch people die in high definition, punch out, go home, and sit with their family for dinner. And that had a really adverse mental health effect. And it was compounded by some other things. But the point of that is that the Air Force realized, we need to change something, because this is an unhealthy environment for these guys. For them to have nobody to relate to, no ability to decompress. And the irony of that is that if you look at physicians also have the same environment as like a forward deployed pilot. They have other physicians that they can talk to in a hospital setting. There's almost the solo practitioner in medicine is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. And so these docs have an ability, these physicians have the same support structure, ironically built in. It wasn't built in by purpose. It just happens to be there, but it's people that they can relate to. Well, in dentistry, we don't have that. We're more like the drone pilots. You go to war, in your practice, and then you go home. and you have a family that is probably loving and supportive, but doesn't understand what you've been going through. And I get it. And people on the outside, and this is what I find seriously ironic, is that if you were just to play that what I just played right there, or what I just said right there, to somebody that isn't a dentist or isn't in dentistry, they'd be like, "Are you kidding me? You guys have it so good," and we do, and I get that. But that's not the point. The point is you need a tribe and a community that can understand what you're going through. And when you're working with a team that doesn't understand what it's like to carry the load of being the dock owner, that's unpaired proximity. So you're surrounded by people that you're not lonely, but you are isolated. And so I think that's really important that we kind of define and understand and appreciate what that isolation is and what it feels like. And that it has a real mental health impact on us, as providers. And so what they found with these drone pilots was that they needed community. They needed to have that peer group. And so they built that back in, and they built a lot of the same things that they had done with the traditional fighter pilots, so that they could have that same type of community and tribe. And it's something we've recognized as being really important. And so, the take home from that is obviously like, find a tribe. And it can't be this superficial stuff. It's not, I know, I get it. Like, one of the things that Jared loves to talk about is how frustrated he would get. And me too, like going to some of these big events where it's not really tribe there. You're not really finding belonging. You are expected more to, I don't know. It's almost like an extension of isolation, because you're around people that could understand you, that it's harder to make connections in those big settings. And so we've worked really hard to try to create those kinds of things, like what we did in Alaska, right?
Right. I think you're exactly right. You're in the right room, the right people, but the setting is like you're all sitting still isolated at your table while you listen to a lecture, and then you all go home instead of having time to like decompress and then talk to each other and just talk shop. So, and that's one of the magic things that happen at these EA conferences that we do, these summits, is putting the people in an environment where they can decompress and just relax and talk shop. Like we do very, the CE components, not that big of a portion of the day. And then it's again based on some of these life and leadership legacy topics. And then the rest of the times, like, go have fun with each other. It was great in Alaska. We'd go fish during the day, camaraderie on the boats and conversations on the boat, and then back at the lodge and the conversations about, team and family and community and clinical stuff. I do this with my practice, and this is how I treat these patients, and these are how I do implants, and just like to being able to talk shop with your, cohorts is great. And just the environments that happen, the environment's so crucial for the conversations to happen, right? Like, and Alaska was so fantastic. We'd go out and fish all day on the boats, and then get back at the lodge and have some time to eat dinner and play some ping pong and hang out and just talk with each other about what's going on in your life, your practice. And man, there were so many good conversations like happening all the time, which was great. So
I haven't laughed that hard. I laughed till I freaking coughed. Like I couldn't breathe. I was laughing so freaking hard that it literally threw me into a coughing. And I get it. I'm 49 years old, and I think it's just part of my age. But still, I laughed until I freaking coughed. And I haven't laughed like that in a long time. And it was so you walk away, it's one of those situations where everybody's had those situations where you have a closeness with your peers that you walk away with inside jokes. And that was something that I freaking love. If I can walk away from a situation with an inside joke, that, it's the whole Vegas experience, right? You had to be there. What stays, I mean, the difference is that it doesn't necessarily stay with our trips, but the idea is that man, for those of you haven't experienced that type of setting or situation, it's pretty magical and it's pretty awesome. And it is something that, Dr. Ballin came back and I think he mentioned it to you, Ryan, that he's like, man, I'm feeling energized and ready to go back to the grind.
Yeah, he's like, I haven't felt this energized to go back and go back to work in a long time, like with new ideas, inspiration. And then he was also like, I'm going to get an EA tattoo. We should all have tattoos
I'll get matching EA tattoos.
or brands. We should brand ourselves like in Yellowstone, like, but again, it was like that community, like he'd found community, he found like a like-minded group of people that like he connected with. Like say, it was so funny. Like it was so fun the whole trip. Like the camaraderie, the laughter, and again, it was just was awesome. And yeah, matching tattoos sounds awesome. Let's do it. So
Well, one of the other cool things that I kind of brought home with me from the Alaska trip was that, um, again, going back to that, like one of the docs is struggling with, and he's like, oh man, he's like, in any other setting, I would feel really dumb talking about this because it's such a first world problem. And he's like, I kind of don't know what to do with my career at this point. I've been successful to the point where now I've met all the goals and I've done what I came to do, but I'm still pretty young. And he says, he says, I get it. Like it sounds dumb talking about it, but he's like, I don't really know what to do next with myself, and that he felt that he could be vulnerable and he was comfortable enough in that situation that and he said, he's like, in any other group, I could not say this. He's like, people would be like, really, dude? Like, it matters. It matters a lot to be in a situation where you feel like you can express the concerns, the real world concerns that you have, regardless of how the outside world would look at it. I think that's important, and that's one side of the equation. And then we get it from the other side where it's like, man, I'm struggling and, I haven't felt comfortable talking about this with anybody, but I want to put it out with this group. I'm really struggling right now with A, B, C, and D, and I need some help, maybe it's, I've seen it everywhere from like family stuff to, just like financial issues. And I mean, we run the gamut. And so that's when we say tribe, that's what we're talking about, is a group of people that there to support you, that you can be open, honest, vulnerable with. And you need to have that in your career. And, go find it wherever that might be. It might not be with EA. It might not be with, whoever it is, but go find it and make sure you've got that people that can relate to you on the level that you're at, and have someone that's there to be supportive of your dreams, but also your fears and your struggles. So I think that's massive right now. And I don't want it to end up, Ryan, where we're now reaching out to another country, to be like, hey, we need help back here. We're struggling as a society. I don't want to get to that point. I think we can, that's one of the things we set out when we did EA. That was one of our very basic things. And it was part of the original vision that Jared had, when he first conceptualized this whole thing, was to recognize that we need community, and we need to have a group where we can find that. So
I
yeah.
I just want to touch base back on what you just mentioned, because I think there's some importance there about like, you got the one guy in the room that's like, I'm uber successful but I want to redefine like what's my next step. But then you've got the other guy that's like, man, I'm struggling and I need help. And those guys can talk to each other and the other guy can help. Well, these are things that may help me in my career. Right. And you get this, um, like it's in the name, right? Elevation association, right? From our association with each other, it helps everybody elevate. And so that's some of the coolest stuff, is just those conversations where, some guy that's struggling can be in a cool setting with a guy that's found success and can learn from them and collaborate and, find mentors and friends that can kind of help coach and just give some instruction. And it's just being able to put yourself in an environment to, um, you know, be fed and also to mentor others. It's just, it's super cool. And, you saw that in Alaska with people at different levels in their career. And then you get them in a place where they can talk and communicate, and some magic happens. Right. And I think, part of that, like you're saying, Jared's vision of what this could be, it's fun to sit back and watch those things kind of happen in those environments where you get those conversations that you're just like, man, that's magic. Like you couldn't pay for something like that. Like to have that opportunity to just, I see it, like I sit in those rooms and I listen to the conversations and I'm like, what's going on over in that corner right now it's magic, right? That guy's going to come away from this conference changed because of that conversation, playing cards at that table or whatever it was. But it happens all the time, or on that hike, or on that surfboard out in the ocean. Like these moments of like getting away, getting with your tribe in the right setting, and man, magic happens. And we've seen it like time and time and time and time again. That's just how that magic happens in those settings. So, yeah.
Well, with that in mind, come join us on any of this. If any of this sounds intriguing or appealing, we are planning every year we do in February around Valentine's Day, we do a couples retreat. And it feeds into the life. We do have life, leadership, and legacy. And so this is one of our focuses for life. And we're going to Belize. We're going back. It's the first time it'll be a twofer because we haven't repeated at any of the locations we've done so far. So this will be the first time we go back to one of the locations by popular demand. We're going back.
Popular demand, yes. There's a reason we're going back.
Yeah. Belize is freaking awesome. If you haven't done it, it's again, lots of CE available if you want to come. This is a brilliant way to pay for a killer vacation for you and your loved one. And it's pre-tax because it is a CE event. So let your practice pay for it. But yeah, come check it out. It's on our website, elevationassociation.com. We also have other stuff going on throughout the year. We always are trying to do cool stuff. If you're a specialist, contact us. We can do something that's called a base camp for you. It's a way to create some of these on a weekend, do an environment where we create some of these social interactions and we go and do something rad that you facilitate. We provide the CE for you. And if you're interested in learning more about some of the leadership aspects, check out our website. We're also on School, SKOOL, and we're on social media. So make sure you guys are checking out, keeping an eye on our calendar. We've always got something in the works. So please stay up to date on that. As always, if you have any questions about anything we're doing, please reach out to us, elevationassociation@gmail.com. Look us up on our website. We're happy to facilitate a call. We just love helping docs, man. This is what we're here for. And we love the collaboration. We love the camaraderie. Again, this is one of the primary motivators for us is the community. So let's continue to keep this ball rolling and hopefully build the tribe a little more and continue to elevate the dentists in our country. So that's a lofty goal, but that's what we're here to do. Any other thoughts before we sign off, Ryan?
No, I think that's it. So come be a part of the community, right? So that's what we're all about. So
right on. Okay. Well, until next time, cheers.